Hello, everyone. This is Percy number 6. Welcome back to episode 20 of Percy's Ever Present Past. I'm very excited today. I've got one of, if not the best custom maker in the community, Domeless Engine. How are you, Domeless?
I am good. I must say I don't know if I agree with you on that point, but thank you very much.
Well, I gotta say, like, I haven't really attempted customs, but you've done a really good job, and I'm sure we'll get into that and much, much more throughout this. So I'm gonna cut straight to it. I love seeing what made people join this community. So what kind of what got the spark? What made you kind of what brought you to the community, and what ultimately made you to create the account?
Well, so I got into Thomas. I think like everybody else, like at a very young age, and I also grew up in the very early days of the internet, which I'm sure shaped my personality in some way. But I remember the very early days of the community. I never commented anything like that, but I definitely have very strong memories of people like. Well, but the big one is Arbo Phil. You got Trains Are Cool Too. I always forget his name. Henry Fan
Uh,
08?
yeah, Henry Fan 88.
Henry Fan 88. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people like that, just these really early content creators that were just super like it's something that I genuinely miss in the community is just how simplistic some of these videos were. I like it was just you have a VHS going in the background and you pushing
Mm-hmm.
the train along with your hand, and I'm like I love that sort of content, love that early stuff.
Well,
So that's really what got me started,
I
like
got
getting into like the Thomas community and stuff like
I
that.
gotta ask you about those, I never talked to, cause Henry Fan 88. I'm pretty sure if I remember right, his name's Trey. Then you got Arble Phil Ryan and Damien Trains are cool too. So like Trey, I remember. I don't think he was even in the community that long. For sure, by 2011 he was gone. I think he might have been gone by 2009 or 2010. So
Yeah, he was.
you remember the
Oh,
early years.
oh yeah, no, I definitely remember. Like I remember when like Arvo Phil first started doing like the unboxing videos. Like that's like the earliest point I remember the community was him
Mhm.
getting his NatFord station. That was probably around like 2007 or 8. Like I want to say.
Mhm.
So definitely the early points I remember a lot.
Do you remember of those I remember Trey was the one who did it, and it was so innovative. I had like have had halfway done. I never actually did it fully, but do you remember like when he made his custom troublesome brake van?
Yeah, and he got. I remember that, and I also remember that he made like I can't remember if it was a follow up video or if it was the comments, but he said like, "Hey guys, can this just be like something I do and not everybody else?" Because I remember everybody else was like, "Oh shoot, you can do customs," and I feel like not to get further into the conversation, but like um I feel like that was like one of the first times people were like, "Oh my gosh, you can paint these things. You can make your own models." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was such a big moment that people are like, "Oh my gosh."
Well, I mean, obviously, for both of us, it's been a long time since we've seen what his custom looks like. He deleted his channel like probably 10 years ago now, but I remember looking at that custom and thinking like this looks pretty close to the real thing. And now in 2021 looking at it, not necessarily that, but like looking at what customs have evolved into, like people have taken it to the next level, yourself included.
Thank you. Um, I will say that definitely during those early days there were some really big outliers of just amazing custom work. People like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. He's the guy who did the he did that one really famous video of Diesel 10 and like Lady in HBO form, and he was a Japanese user.
Ooh, then I don't think I'm gonna remember that. I don't think I'll remember who it was.
Or like Tom Tomica who did like
Hmm.
the custom. I think it was Wilbur and
Oh
Derek.
yeah.
That's who I remember specifically.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, it's the and like because everybody did like I said with the troublesome break fan. I started doing it. I didn't, like I said, I didn't finish it, but Troublesome Breakman was like that first one, and it seemed like you said, back in those days, more people were kind of customizing their Tomy engines than they were their wooden railway ones.
Yeah, I think I like if I was to guess why, it's because like with Tommy engines, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that because I've never really made a custom Tommy engine. Tommy
Hmm.
engines are probably much harder to work with. So when those did get done back then, they were always gonna feel, I feel like, these nice quality like designs because you had to like really plan out what you were gonna do with it.
Hmm.
And I do remember back then when railway people would do like if I could. I remember my first custom, technically a custom ever, was I had an Imaginarium from when I was like probably 3 or 4. I had an Imaginarium airport playset. I think it was Imaginarium, and it came with one of those really generic diesels, like an
Hmm.
American like diesel engine. And I
Hmm.
remember being like, I could probably paint this into Diesel 10, and I took a bunch of like really like what are those? There's a type of paints that like they come in the tubes and they stink. I think they're oil paints.
Okay.
They smell awful. And I just remember trying to mix those all together, trying to get his brown, but it turned into like a gray. And I just remember like it looks awful, and I wish I still had that to show people, but
Oh, that'd be
it's
cool.
just super.
Did you take any pictures of it at least, or?
No, this was that. Like I said, I was probably back in like 2006 when I
Hmm.
did that. So this was a long time ago. And I'm sure, like a lot of my early collection of wooden railway stuff just doesn't really exist anymore.
Hmm.
Sadly, I mean, I have a couple of them. I still have my original '93 Thomas that I got from my cousin, as well as my '92
Oh,
Henry and
nice.
Percy, or '94 Percy. But
That's.
yeah, so a lot of my early stuff just does not exist anymore, sadly. But
Hmm. So, I guess kind of get into that because you're of course known for all the customs you've worked on over the years. What kind of got you into the custom world?
oh man, so like when I joined finally, that was about 2016, like late 2016, early 2017, and the only person around that, so it's so strange to me how much the community has really changed in such a short amount of time. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and like back then, there was only, I mean, you had people who would make customs for their series, but there's only one person who was really doing like the custom thing and making it one of their main parts of their channel, which was Here the Japanese Train, Matt.
Hmm.
And I remember seeing that kind of stuff, and I was just like, oh my gosh, again, it was that spark of like being like, you don't have to be confined to what wooden railway made. You can go out and build your own stuff. It was super interesting to me. And I remember my first few customs were like simple. Where I take the Orbium coaches, like those, like they look like express coaches, but they're
Hmm.
like generic brand.
Yep.
Um, they were those, but with like stickers on them to make them look like express coaches.
Hmm.
I remember the first engine custom I ever did. I think this was the first one. Were these blister twins, and I still have them. And I might give them away someday. I might like do a contest and just give them away because they look awful, and I don't want them in my house anymore. They're like, man, I tried to do like what Lemmy did, where he built his like engines out of cardboard, and they look so bad, and I cannot believe that they've held up to this day. And I just it's just so funny to me how like that was like what the whole custom thing started as.
Wow.
But yeah,
I mean, I feel like even though you said that Diesel 10 one you did back in the days, your first one, that was kind of like your first real step into. I feel like you should save those just for that reason.
no, I think that's why they've been sitting on the shelf for so long. Because I'm one of those people where if something sits on a shelf for too long, I don't like that. I
Hmm.
wish I always want them to be out with people. You know what I mean? So a lot of my customs over the years I have sold just because I don't like when things just sit on shelves. And I'm not much of a filmer guy. You
Hmm.
know, the stuff I do is a lot of stuff just like I like to build things. I'm not much of like a filming video guy. I'm sure
Hmm.
because I don't really upload very much, but so it's just that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. And yeah, I mean, I think it's so because I mean, you did well. Let's talk about customized too with these because like you did all the main engines of the series. You made into customs of like which you you would consider them to look like? What kind of made you do that and go in that direction?
Um, it was really when I started really getting into the Railway series. Like growing up, I knew there was a TV series. And I knew about the Railway series, because it said in the intro and everything like that. But then it wasn't until my like late teenage years
Mm-hmm.
where I was just like, oh my gosh, there's this whole history to Thomas I didn't know about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so interesting to me. And then seeing these designs of these engines based off their actual like counterparts, it was like, oh my gosh, those are so cool. I would love to have a model that. And I never got into H. I mean, I tried getting to HO, but it's a whole other ballpark that I cannot wrap my head around. Um, and so I was like, well, what could I do? And that's when I was like, well, I've never really seen people completely like around the time I'm gonna talk about the first Henry and the first like Railway Series Henry custom I did that was like completely scratch built kind of. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember around that time nobody had really tried doing that, like where they're like, I'm gonna completely scratch build an engine and make it try and look. And I hate that first custom. I think that first Henry custom looks terrible. I cannot stand to look at that thing anymore. But I'm very you can't I'm very self conscious about my work.
You're very hard on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but it was just that first thing of like people were like, oh my gosh, you can not to toot my own horn or anything, 'cause I whatever, but like they were like, oh my gosh, you can really just build things. So I cannot say I was the first one to do that because here the
Mm-hmm.
Japanese train built an axle before, like in his early stuff with like the Great Race stuff. I remember that
Mm-hmm.
being like scratch built. But like this was the first time somebody really done like a Railway series kind of like interpretation of that. Because I done repays before, but at Henry was the first one where I was like, I wanna completely scratch build these engines, and that's where a lot of it has gone. And I think, I'm so happy to see because like I still get DMs from people who are just like, I love your stuff, and it's inspired me to do customs and just the custom boom in the community in the past few years is so incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing it. It's something that's just magical.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely helped get that spark going in the community, and I mean, for you too. Like I've like everybody else, I've seen the customs you do, and I think it's like people who make videos here, and their first couple videos or first year or two maybe of videos might not be the best, but to see where they are from day one versus present, like it changes a lot. And I think that's I think the way you talk, especially, you probably feel that way too. That as time's gone on, you've really been able to hone your craft in terms of creating custom Thomas wooden railway items.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like I said earlier, I don't think I'm the best in any way. There are people who are way better than me, like especially nowadays there are. But I still like it's one of those things where it comes in phases where I'm like, if I don't feel like working in customs, I just don't feel like it. I don't want to work on them. But it always comes back to the point where I'm like, oh, I want to build something again.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very on and off, but yeah, I definitely agree about like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanna, I was thinking, we first brought up the idea of doing this episode because I think we or you were tweeting about Arbophil or Trey, one of them, and you know, I was in my early years, I was very good friends with Arbophil, and not that we aren't. I guess we're not good friends. I haven't talked to him in a while. It's just I don't talk with him as much. Trey, since he deleted his channel, I haven't talked to him either. So not many people, except for the people who are there back in the day, remember these guys. So I want to take this opportunity while I have you on, just to like talk about these memories of these guys. So hopefully people listening like know some of essentially the pioneers of this community that have deleted their channels and have gone away. So with that said, I want to talk about Trey first, Henry Fan 88. I'm gonna tell you what I remember of him, and then if you want to tell me what you can think of him, what you remember of him, because I have very few memories of Trey. So hopefully us together can like maybe remember other memories we have of Trey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my memory I have of Henry Fan 88. The first time I was exposed to him was I think like we probably either he must have commented on something of mine, one of my videos. So I checked out his, and I thoroughly remember watching his, I believe, Rusty to the Rescue remake. It was a remake, and he did, the only other person I compare it to now is uh, I can't even think of his name. I'm gonna think of it as or I'm gonna look it up as I'm talking. But he would like, which I'm sure you remember. He would have like this giant 10 cents 01. That's who it was. 10 cents 01 who
Yeah,
did this too.
I love 10 cents 01 stuff.
Because
I still go back and watch that.
they both did this and nobody else did it. But they had like the train table that a lot of us had as kids. But they put like a I don't even know what you call it on top of it to make the layout better. So
Like a big piece of like plywood.
yeah, that's essentially, yeah, that's what it was. Because then it was like the first time people used, grass in videos. So I remember watching his remake in like 2008, maybe 2009, early 2009, and thinking like that's one of the best videos I've ever seen. So that's like about all I remember of Trey. What memories do you have of him?
Yeah, I definitely have the same memory of seeing the train table at first because I think everybody as kids, your layouts would confine to your bedroom floor kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
or like your basement floor, and I just remember being like, oh my gosh, you can build on a table. I don't know why, but that's always stuck with me. And like right now, I'm currently at least trying to work on a project where I want to build what I consider to be like my dream layout kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I never even for a second considered it being on the floor. I wanted to be on like a big table. Like I don't know. I've always loved the idea of layouts on tables. I think it makes you have to think about where you're going to put stuff more. You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it's so cool. And the other things I remember about him is I always remember the remakes. I remember the videos. I remember the discussion videos. I remember there was one where he found. I think I might be remembering this wrong, but I think it was he found a '94 duck that was like the magnets were broken off or something, and he found it in like his friend's little brother's toy box, something like that. And he's like, "Yeah, I just took it. I just took it because I mean, whatever. He's not going to enjoy it." I'm just like, I was like, "Oh my god, okay." But I just remember like that. I remember that video, or I remember. I remember he was one of the first people to go to the train room. If you remember that, like that was like a trend for a
Mm-hmm.
while. Was the train room, and he bought the mountain tunnel.
Yeah.
And, I remember that. And then I mean I'm just gonna keep naming off things I remember from
Please do,
specific
because like I
videos.
forgot. Like as you were telling the duck story, I remembered it. But if you didn't tell me that, I wouldn't have remembered it.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember he didn't. I remember he did not have a turntable. He only had the middle part to the roundabout action turntable, just like the part with the grooves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember that his grandpa review because he never had a shed. I remember that's one thing about his layouts. I was always like, well, yeah, I feel like you should have that, or whatever. He never had a shed on his layout.
He didn't
He,
have like
he
any like roundhouse, single stone, nothing.
no, he didn't have he. I don't remember if I think the only station on his layout he had was. Do you know? Okay, so you know like Brio's.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's like a Brio station with like a gray roof and like yellow pole. It's kind of like Natford.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but it was like that station. And I
Okay.
just remember, and like I said earlier, it was the early years where people would just play the episode in the background on their like VHS TV, and
I
like
remember
push it
those.
along with push it along and like film the whole thing in one take. And I just remember that kind of stuff from him.
I remember, well, along those lines, like, and I mean, I'm guilty of this, but a lot of people back then, especially compared to how people do remakes now, but if you didn't have something or if it was like a unique character, people would just film their TV for a few seconds.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, there's this really specific. I think it's still on YouTube. There was a remake of Toad Stands By,
Mm-hmm.
and I distinctly remember this guy didn't have a Douglas, so I remember him using a Neville, and I had never seen Neville up to that point because I didn't grow up with the hit era. I just kind of always watched my episodes that were on VHS,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know who Neville was, and I was like, oh, I didn't have the Wooden Rally Douglas either, so I was like, the Wooden Rally Douglas looks really weird. It's that kind of thing where if you didn't
Yeah.
have it, you still film the episode anyway.
Mm-hmm. Man, I remember that too now that you bring it up, and I can't for the life of me guess who that would be.
I'm sure it's on YouTube. Like I can look really quick.
I'm gonna try to think it too. I have the former members page pulled up to try and help me think of who could be. I don't think it would be Diamond Thomas. He had a lot. I don't think it would be Damien. Uh,
I remember Diamond Thomas too.
he. I didn't interact with him too much. He was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but he uploaded not a ton, but he had pretty good videos when he would upload.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I'm looking for that remake. Diamond Thomas's remake came up.
Oh, really? That's
I don't
ironic.
think that's. I don't think that's the one, but I just saw it. Oh, the 10 Cents O one. 10 Cents O one was like one of the first people that had like really great
Mhm.
remakes. I feel.
And he was one of the first people with a white face.
Yes, I remember that.
That was
And
like,
like I
mm-hmm.
remember back then it wasn't like considered super rare. Like even back then
Yep.
it was just like they were like, oh, it's just some weird factory. You know, you can buy them for like $50.
Well, like I along those lines too. There was this one. It was a joke with a lot of the people who were on at the time. Thomas Freak 808 ended up buying this item on eBay. It was a white face troublesome truck, but part of its side was missing. So you imagine what a white face looks like. Like half of the long side was missing,
Yeah, yeah.
but he bought it for like $10. And I
Wow.
I almost bought that, but I mean, think about how much that would go for now, like even in that condition.
Even in that condition, I would at least like somebody would definitely buy that for 200.
Yeah, at least. It's
It's something
crazy.
crazy like that.
But
I'm one of those people. I still don't even have like a troublesome brake fan. So I'm like,
hmm
what face is so off my radar? I can't even imagine.
yeah, I'm the same
Um,
boat. Like I don't have one. I'm like, if I can get just a some brake fan, that'd be nice.
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Oh, I missed out on one for like I slept through it. I missed out on one for like $50. I was like,
Oh,
I
that's
was
the
so
worst.
upset about it. I was like, oh man. Oh
That
well.
is
You
terrible.
win some, you lose some.
Yeah. Did would it be he recently returned actually, Mambus D Pamdus.
Yes, I remember him.
He's one. I don't know if he did remakes or not, but I know he was one from the older. Probably not. Would have been Waylanator, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my. Okay. Oh my God. Whalinator. Whalinator is one that I'll go back and watch because I know it's still on. And
Hmm.
just the way I can never hear like rare wooden Thomas trains without going my rare wooden trains. Like I can't hear it, and it's just so
Yep.
funny to me.
Well, it's.
Or like how James met Mike and stuff like that. I love that kind of
Hmm.
early content.
Neat.
So I just found out
Hmm.
Diamond Thomas made two remakes of Toad Stands By, but neither of the one I'm looking for. But I watched through one of them, and I totally forgot about this. This is such like a classic video where it was he didn't have a toad, and I remember it was he ended up using the Soda Line caboose, but with like a square paper face cut out like a smiley face.
Hmm. I forgot
And
about that.
I remember that. So I don't know if the other one that I remember is still online, but
Wow, that's really cool. I forgot about that. It's, you know, looking at the from then versus now, it's crazy what people like. If you just didn't have an item, you improvised. You found something else. You know.
exactly, yeah.
Man, yeah. There's some. I love looking back at the old names because like I don't think like Arbo Phil. He mostly. I think you're right. It felt like mostly he would just upload like unboxing videos.
Yeah, he was there are certain videos that I just have such clear memories of, and God, if I could have one person's content back, it would definitely be our both.
I
Just
know.
because he was one of those people that just I remember being like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. He was the person where the dream layout idea came from. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like he planned out his layouts and then he built them. I love that. I remember always thinking that was so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
wouldn't he go out and like buy the items he needed to complete the layout?
yeah, exactly. Like I remember there was an episode where he got his 6 pole Knapford station. Um, it's funny. So I didn't even know there was an old style Knapford station. I grew up, I'm sure like you, I grew up in like the early 2000s.
Hmm.
So like I didn't really know about a lot of the early 90s stuff besides like the stuff I had. Um,
Mhm.
so like when I learned there was an old style manifestation, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want that. You know what I mean? So I remember trying to buy. It was a picture of a six pole, and I specifically wanted the six pole just because I was like, Arbofo has it, so cool. Um, and it was by a seller called Fun for You, and I remember I ordered it and I got it in the mail, and it was a four pole, and I was
Oh.
just so upset. And I remember I had this was like when I was probably like it's probably like when I was like maybe 9. So I
Mhm.
like had my mom like DM him and say like this is not what was in the picture, you know?
Yep.
He's like, oh, I'm sorry. Here's a $10 coupon to buy something on my store. And I remember it never worked. Every time we tried to put in the coupon,
Really? Oh
yeah. So
man.
that's a fun story.
It's funny you bring that up because like I remember seeing. I don't think I ever bought anything from him, but I remember seeing that name all the time on eBay, and uh, yeah, yeah,
I think
he.
he's still up. And I
Uh,
mean,
it
he
wouldn't
or they,
surprise
I
me.
don't know.
He's probably still got a ton that he didn't sell because I think he
Yeah,
kind of had high prices. I don't remember exactly, but that's probably
yeah.
why he
Oh
gets
no,
so
he had
much.
high price. I remember like a '92 diesel. I think he wanted for like $50. I just, oh my gosh, you're not going to sell that. So this is something so funny. I was looking on eBay the other day, just because I think everybody kind of just browses eBay.
Hmm.
But um, so there are certain listings that you just know have been there for years,
Yep.
because like you remember seeing them early in the days.
Hmm.
And this guy who is selling, I cannot remember the name of the thing, but they've been around since like those days, like those 2008 days. There's this Mavis and this Terrence that have been on there for years, and finally, like they've been at high prices. 92 Mavis, 92 Terrence. And finally, this guy put them up for 99 cents, like bid. And somebody
Whoa.
finally bid on that. And I'm just like, oh, now those are going to be gone. That's weird. Like, it was a weird feeling. I'm like, oh my gosh, those have been on here for so long, and now they're just going to be gone. It's so weird to think about.
Man, I can't believe that. I did get a 92 Mavis, and I paid I think 15 for it. It wasn't too bad. I
Yeah,
can only imagine how much he had that up for, but originally.
yeah. If it's safe for that long.
Mhm. I think I a fun story about Arbor Phil. There was this 92 or 93 Daisy on eBay at least 10 years ago now. And I remember myself and I want to say it might have been Kikere, I think. It was him or James's 5. I can't remember. I want to say Kikere. We were kind of debating, like, we both kind of wanted it, and we're like, we finally were like, okay, I can get it. So I bought it. Was a buy it now, right? Well, shortly
Yeah.
after I bought it, I did an unboxing video and uploaded it. And apparently, later on, I was told that Arbo Phil and Trains Are Cool too were doing the same thing. They were deciding, like, between the two of them, who should buy it.
Um,
Then they come up one day and see it's gone, and then, like, a week later, they see me do the unboxing.
oh my gosh, it's such a okay. I have a story so similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
Multi.
Yep.
I've told the story to Multi so many times because I think it's so funny. Um, Back when I really wanted the six pole Natford,
Mm-hmm.
there was a buy it now listing, and it came with the box, and the only thing that was missing was it was missing like the front peg of the like the trap piece,
Mm-hmm.
It was missing one of those pegs. And I was like, even as a kid, I was like, I can replace that. This is
Yep.
a good deal. And I remember back then I didn't have my own eBay account, so I had to like go and be like, Mom, if I give you like $30 from like my little box of money up my room, can you buy this from? You know what I mean? You had to like
Yep.
convince them. Like
Mm-hmm.
that just remember like that was like what it was like back then. And then it was gone. I was like, oh man, I was really upset. And then I remember I found Multi's channel and I saw a Natford Station review. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll watch that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the Natford. And I was like so mad. And I held like as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so mad at Multi. But it's dumb to think about.
Yep.
And now when I told Multi that, he's like, oh, I didn't know. And I was like, no, it's fine. It's just I think it's funny.
Hey, I've been in those shoes too. There was this guy, Train Fan 202, back in the day. Same type of deal, 92 silver line caboose, and he bought it, and it was like a bid, and he beat me for it. It's like, come
Yeah.
on. But
Yeah, no, I feel like that happens, especially now that there's Twitter and everybody like tweets out what they get.
mhm.
I feel like that happens a lot more now.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, I see
but I feel like
you
Oh, go
You've
ahead.
at least at the time of this recording, you've picked up a few nice things the last couple weeks.
Yeah. So what I've been doing is I've been selling off a lot of the collection, and whatever I sold, I said I would put back into the collection. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yep.
So it's mostly been I've been mostly trying to get lots because I feel like lots are a lot more fun to get than just singular items.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing lots, and um, the only thing like recently that I bought that wasn't really from that was my most wanted item, and I'm so excited to get it. And that is the Ellsbridge platform, and it comes with a box, and I'm so excited because I had this item for a little bit, and I remember there's something about trains that are cool too. If we ever get into him,
Mm-hmm.
was he's where I found out about the Ellsbridge platform, and I had it for a little bit when I was a kid, but it was missing the pole. And I did this whole thing where I had to sell a bunch of stuff a couple years ago, and I sold a lot of my early like collections from that era. And I wish I didn't, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy to now own it in the box. And I'm going to take it out of the box. I want to use it on the layout and everything, but like it's not new in box. It just comes with the box. But
Yeah.
um, so excited to get that. It's like my favorite item. I don't know why. It's so I love how quaint it is. Like early wooden railway is so quaint to me. I love it.
Well, talking about that, like that all lines up perfectly because Damien, to me, one of the most iconic videos from back in the day was that 92-93 lot. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's still up. I watched that earlier a couple months ago
It,
with like the Henry and the James.
did he say how much he paid for that? Because I don't remember what it was, but I know it wasn't like that expensive.
1 second, I can look it up really quick.
I
I can
As
see.
you do that, I want to guess. I want to guess it was like 40 something for it because he got, what did he get? Without me looking and seeing if I can remember, I'm pretty sure he got, because this was all 92-93 items. It was like James Henry, Breakdown Train, Soderline Caboose, maybe? Troublesome Truck, I'm pretty sure. Like, those are the ones I remember. I don't think he got any other engines, though. I think it was just
I got
James
the
and
video
Henry.
pulled up right here. Let me see.
Alrighty.
I'll turn the volume really quick. Oh, so let's see. Man, I love watching this early content. Kind
Damien,
of.
Damien from back in the day. Oh man, I miss him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just this early kind of content. Let me see. Okay, so it's a 93 James, 93 Henry, 92 Troublesome Truck, and 94 the back part of the 94 breakdown train, and a 93 I'll have to listen. I can't see. I can't. The camera quality was so bad back then. I can't tell if it's Bill or Ben. Let me see. Uh, Ben. Ben.
Ben, okay.
I can't. I wonder if he says how much he paid. Oh, and also a tree, a sticker workman, and a sticker to top hat. This is like that's good. Breakdown train and just one last one. He might say, but I don't know. But I'm guessing it wasn't that much.
And I think one of the funny things with him is like a lot of people used to do this back in the day. When you would buy something off eBay, you'd make that your channel icon. And
Yes, I remember that.
and now it's been so long since Damien's been on that channel that it's still like that Ada, Jane, or Mabel, whichever one that was.
Yeah. I distinctly remember people doing that.
I definitely was guilty of it.
I remember one video that like is still up that I still listen to is where he shows all his like original. He calls it, I think it's called my originals or something like that, and they're like all his 92 and 93 items, and it has that one song, Robin Hood theme. And I just like that song always gets stuck in my head whenever I think about it. I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm thinking about trains are cool too. Or his videos about the 100 piece set were always so interesting.
Yeah, he did.
Because oh god, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I recently got a 100-piece set, like in a lot, just like it came with all the pieces to one,
Really, like
and it was just
the full thing?
yeah, a 90. Well, it's missing. The only thing it's missing was a 94 troublesome truck, which is too bad. You know, I'd love to have a logo, whatever.
Hmm.
You know, for the price I got, it was amazing. You know,
That's good.
um, but yeah, so like, and seeing the 100-piece set built, it really is like just a beautiful set. It's incredibly cool to see.
Hmm. Yeah, a very very iconic set, especially the early years of Thomas Winter Railway.
Yeah, and that was like the first time I was like, I realized like, oh my gosh, if you didn't have a set, you could buy the pieces and build it yourself. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool.
Hmm. Oh, for sure, man. I love, looking back at these, and to look at the prices too. Like, what kind of surprises me with like Wooden Railway now versus even like 5 years ago, it's kind of like it depends on the items. Like the rarer stuff are a lot more, but the other stuff's not terrible. It's not super hard to get.
Yeah, like there are certain. I was gonna bring that up. How like there was a time from like maybe 2000. I the community really lulled
Mhm.
was like 2011 to probably 2015. I want to say
Mhm.
like there were definitely new people coming in, but it was very much like the show was bad, so everybody kind of like a lot of people distanced themselves, and
Yeah.
me included for a long time. Um, and I just remember like I would sometimes go on eBay and just like check and see what they were, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I was buying stuff now because a lot of the stuff was so much cheaper. Like it's so funny to me back then. There's a video by Jay Luby where he talks about like tips for collecting,
Mhm.
and he goes on eBay during that part, and you can see like all these old listings that were up, and like I think it had like a '92 Toby for like $100 something, and I was like, whoa,
Wow.
that's crazy to think about.
Wow, that is. That's so much for one. I,
Yeah, and I think that was just because back then so little was known about the early stuff.
mhm.
You know,
And
I
I'm glad that, minus like the white face and troublesome brake van, most of the 92, 93 stuff, like I would have thought like 10 years ago, I would have thought that today they would be worth, or they would be even more expensive, but they're about the same price, like give or take maybe a little bit.
yeah, if you want to get like a really good condition, the main seven, if you want to get a good condition one, you're probably gonna pay about
Hmm.
30 to 50. But if the other ones like you can get for pretty cheap,
Well,
honestly, like
do you
like
remember?
Mavis, you can probably get if you look out for Mavis, you can get it for like $20. You know?
Hmm. And do you remember one of Damien's last things he bought when he was a part of the community? It was like a 92 Herald. He paid like $50. I don't know why I remember this so much.
Yeah. Oh
He
my gosh.
paid 50.
So in that same. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, he paid like 50 for that, and it's you probably can get one for half that price now.
I've seen them go for 10.
Mhm.
And like I remember in like that lot I was talking about, they came with the 100-piece set. It also came with a bunch of engines, and
Mhm.
I only paid about $100 for that lot.
Wow.
And like and it came with a '92 Herald and like a Crosby and a '93 Thomas, a '94 Thomas. You know all these engines, a '93 Bill, and just all this stuff. And I'm like. And for now, that's a good nowadays that's a good deal. But like
Mhm.
back then, I could not imagine what people would be thinking.
Well, like,
Um,
I mean, I think even back then you could say because Crosby's have always been pretty expensive. So I mean, those usually go
yeah,
$30 to $50. So that's about a third half of the price right there is just in that one item. If you put it
oh,
that way.
absolutely,
So you
yeah,
definitely got a deal there.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so I wanted to go back to our boat really quick because there's
Mm-hmm.
one quote I really wanted to bring up and see if you remembered it.
Uh huh.
And I feel like whenever I talk about our boat, I think it's so funny and it's been stuck in my head for years. It's a prototype.
I was hoping you bring that. Yeah, I love that quote. do you
I love how that oh god, sorry.
do you? Well, I was kind of switching to a different part of our workflow. So say what you were gonna say.
I was just gonna say I love how back then, like I was saying, there was so little known that back then, if you saw a '94 item with '93 wheels, you'd be like, "Oh my god, this is a prototype! It's incredible!" I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was so funny.
It is because like along that because what I was gonna say it's I remember him doing like maybe you remember it more, but as we talked, it came to my mind, but I remember him doing like a 3-part series on like maybe the rarest items or something like that. Does that ring a bell?
Which channel? Arbotho?
Yeah, Arbofil.
Like his rarest items or
Like
the
I don't know
rarest
if it
items
was
overall?
necessarily his. It might have just been rarest items in general, because I remember maybe this will help. I remember Slept Late made a part 4, and he kind of got attacked and stuff for it. Uh,
I don't remember that specifically off the top of my head.
so
I'm sure I did watch it, but I just don't remember that
I
specific
want to
video.
say, because like the funny thing is, like I remember the Slept Late more than I do the Arbor Phil part for this. But I think Slept Late was like part 4 to what Arbor Phil was doing, and if I deep dive, maybe I can find. I don't think it's on what Slept Late's channel was anymore, but somebody might have re-uploaded it. It wasn't a quick video, or it wasn't a long video anyway. But yeah, he did it like on 94 Duck or something. So I want to say it was like maybe it was the rarest items he had, or just rare items. I don't know, but I wanted to bring
Yeah, I
that
don't.
up. Maybe I thought maybe it'd ring a bell.
Um, not really. A lot of the Arbo stuff. Arbo Phil. Here's something about Arbo Phil. I remember when he ordered. Apparently, the picture was like it was like a '96 Percy, but he got in the mail and it was like a 2001 Percy, but it was in the box, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he wanted the old style one that had the wooden funnel.
Mm-hmm.
I distinctly remember that, and I remember the whole community getting up and like just being like, "Oh man, Ryan, we're so sorry for you." Like everybody was like, "Just remember that."
uh
Or
yeah, I kind of do now that you bring that up. I kind of remember that him getting a different version of Percy. I don't know if I remembered it was Percy or not, but him getting a different version of the item, and the community reaction to it, which is, nice to see.
yeah, or I remember he swore in a video once. I think he was unboxing a Henry, I think, and I remember there was like there used to be this really long thread in the comments of like this parent who was like, "I let my kid watch your videos, and you shouldn't be swearing," and like the whole community was like attacking this guy. I just remember that so well, and I just thought it was so funny to think about.
Oh man, I forgot about that, but that sounds just like Arbol Film. But I mean,
Oh
even
man,
him,
I miss that kind of
he
stuff.
stopped making videos like probably 10 years ago now, which is the crazy part.
Yeah, I remember when he was selling off his items.
Well,
Like
because let's see if I remember the timeline of him right. Because I remember when that Jack War happened. That was 2012, and while he
that
was a
was such a
part of
long
it,
time ago. Oh my gosh,
that's the thing. That was
that's
almost 9 years ago now. But he was a
that's
part of it, but he
crazy.
wasn't making videos anymore. So I want to say 10 years ago it's been since he's been uploading. And then, like you said, because I think he closed his account in 2014. So I think like that last year or two, he was just selling stuff on eBay.
Yeah, and he still kept his channel up at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember one day going to it and seeing it was gone. I was like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because it was just it really is. It really makes you feel like, oh, I wish I could go back and relive some nostalgia. And there's some nostalgic Thomas videos still on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever need to feel nostalgic, I'll go back and watch rare Thomas Wood Railway Trains too.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. But I wish with all my heart I could still watch old Arbo film content.
Me too. And that stinks, not having it up. I think, we briefly mentioned 10 cents a one earlier, but I have to bring this up if we're talking about old users. I remember watching, I forget what he called the video, but the one where it's like the Diesel becomes Derek.
Yeah, yes, I remember that
That
one.
was one of my favorites from back in the day.
Yeah, and like and what we're bringing up, there's so many other people that were just like
Mm-hmm.
Flying Duckman Genesis, people like that. Like there
Yeah.
were so many other people like during this time. Um,
Oh man.
or people like I mean, you look back and you laugh at them, but I mean, I think we can all say that we all watched Train's explanation point back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
for
like
sure.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's obviously it's been over 10 years now since some of these people have uploaded all. It's Clarity 34. Do you remember him?
Oh yes, I remember clearly. Yeah. I mean, like you got to think there are still people nowadays who were there back then who are still uploading. You know, yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Keith Ray, uh, uh, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name.
Well,
Soda Fan 2K10.
mm-hmm.
Just people like that, where it's just like it is crazy to see. Oh, it's a really. I was thinking about Soda Fan 2K10. You know, it's a really early video, not by him, but it had Brio Thomas. So that's how I remembered it.
Hmm.
That just it's still on YouTube, and if you ever need a good laugh, like go watch this video. It's called Bossy Boots.
Okay.
It is one of my favorite videos because just the voice they use for Thomas is so funny. Just like it's like I don't think I'd be able to reproduce it. It's such a high pitched squeal voice. It's so funny though.
I
Oh,
don't
it's so good.
I don't know. Maybe I just didn't watch it, or I don't remember. But I'll once we're done talking, I'll have to go and go watch it for myself.
It is such a good video.
I just I love, I don't do it enough, like just looking at the former members, seeing who was there. Like do you remember he didn't really do too much Thomas like Wooden Railway type of content, but do you remember in Drexel Studios?
I what videos did he make? Because I feel
He
like I do,
What
but
he
like
would do is he would make community members into wooden trains.
yes, okay, I remember this guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Cause I
It
remember
was
like I he did one for me at least once, and I remember I'm like, well, Percy's my favorite, so Percy. Blue's my favorite color, and five's my favorite number. So it was essentially just a Percy in paint, changed it to blue, and changed the number to five, and that's how he would do it for everyone.
I remember. I think some of those are still up. I think.
I actually know his channel's been deleted.
Oh, has it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember that kind of stuff. You know what? If there is a little bit of like early Arbophil content still on YouTube, and I was remembering this. There's the original TWRC channel
Oh
that
yeah.
still has some videos of like just a few second clips, and also this like video of him spray painting a 92 Mavis.
Okay.
And I'm happy that at least that exists. You know what I mean? Like at least there's a little bit still there.
Well,
Or
I haven't
oh, go ahead.
asked him, but I know Damien after he or shortly before Arbo Phil took his channel down, he downloaded his videos, but that was 7 years ago now, so I don't know if they're still up. I haven't asked about it in a long time, but might have to
Man, if
check,
those
see if he still got
if
some.
he if he ever re-uploads them, man, or if he ever puts them anywhere, he would be like a god to me. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Oh man. Yeah, I never, I mean, half the time I didn't know the best way to download, so I really never, and even if I did, the computer I've been using, I only started using in 2015, so, and I haven't been able to transfer my data from one, before it usually be my laptop would stop working and I'd have to get a new one, so even
Yeah,
if I did download, you
it's
know,
funny. I don't think I brought this up yet, but growing up, I didn't have internet.
hmm,
So
really,
whenever I'd go watch, I think this is why I never created an account because I just wouldn't be able to upload very much.
hmm,
Whenever I'd watch stuff, I'd be going to my grandparents' house because they lived in the city.
hmm.
So a lot of this stuff just, I remember I did have. You remember the old flip video cameras? Like they're like the big
That was the first
rectangular
camera I
ones.
used, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I was like the only way I knew I was like I want to watch this later. But the only way I know how to do that is I would take my flip camera to my grandparents' house and I recorded the Arbo Phil video of the 90 of him getting his 94 Thomas. And
Hmm.
I wish I knew where that flip camera was. I do weird. I think it was broken, but I wish I knew where it was because I would love to find that again. Like even in such low quality, I would still love to see
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, that's it's funny you bring that up. I did that a couple times too cuz like there'd be these like I would listen to like the Pokemon Japanese entrants and they would always like delete those. So I would try and record them with my camera before they would get deleted.
Yeah, yeah, stuff like that. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm not trying to be like kids nowadays, but like it's I just remember like back then it was such a different time for like the internet and stuff like that,
Hmm.
especially in this community, it was so strange.
Well,
And like Leo Kim Video was like the biggest thing, you
yeah,
know,
Leo.
and
Yeah,
everything like that.
he's I guess he's disappeared into the background essentially. which is
Yeah,
unfortunate. But yeah, I remember watching him too. I haven't, I don't, it's been a while since I've watched one of his videos, but yeah, he was somebody I watched a ton of too. Let's,
yeah.
there's like, I like Smudger Sirhando. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah. Who does? I mean, he still has his videos. I think.
Yeah. I checked. What was it? I think recently one of his popped up in my YouTube homepage. So I watched a few of his old ones. It's like wow, and in a good way to see how much the community's evolved. Like I remember, I think this video of his was called like the Rocky Road or the tricky track.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I really liked that episode. And now you look back and it's like it's a time capsule, to show how much the community's changed in 13 years now.
Oh yeah. Or like early T Cray stuff too is super.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
you go back and watch that and you're like, oh my gosh,
I mean,
I can't believe like this is what I mean. It's classic, no doubt, but you're like, this is what content was back then.
hmm you probably are like, oh, thank you. You're probably one of the few people who remember when it was Kikere 24 and not Thomas Wooden Railway.
Yeah, I remember when he got hacked. I remember when that happened,
Hmm.
or like he lost his account,
Yeah.
and that was like I just remember like people were like, oh my gosh, is this the end of Kikre 24 Studios? And I was like, I mean, it was a weird time.
Well,
It was such
how did
a
because like I was talking to him, so I don't even know. I think I don't know how like he must have messaged me on a different account, or which was probably NW Breakfan. Maybe even had that up on the channel. I don't know. But how did you end up finding his new channel once he started uploading on, I guess, NW Breakfan and then or Thomas Winter Railway?
I think it was just like by that point you just kind of like you know as a kid you would always kind of just look for new stuff, and I think by that point you were able to kind of like, and especially I was able to like find it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if anybody's uploading Wooden Rally content, watch it.
Yep. That's
So
true.
it
That's
was just
true.
that kind of thing where it's like, oh, I found it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's oh man, I do miss those days. It was a different time.
or like Rob when he first started, his content was so like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
this is like high quality. As a kid, I assumed I was so dumb for this. I don't know why I thought this, but I thought Rob was like working for like a television studio. I thought that's how he had such a good camera, and I was
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
But you're right. I mean, especially for the time. I mean, he had pretty. I don't think I watched at least early on, like when he was still because he was jumping around between the two channels. Uh,
Yeah,
I watched a little bit, but I mean, even back then, it's like wow, I remember what I really remember about Rob was when they did that contest or whatever, the giveaway.
yeah. I'm sad those videos aren't up anymore.
I don't
Like
think
a
so,
lot of
no.
early Rob stuff isn't up anymore too.
Cause he showed his face in that video, and I
Yeah,
I couldn't believe that. I'm like, I can't believe anybody would show their face on here. I can now look at it.
yeah, exactly. Like back then, face reveals were such like a big thing where you're like, oh my gosh, you
Mhm.
feel comfortable enough? Are you serious? You sure? I mean, it's the internet and like
Mhm.
it's on there forever, but
I
it's
mean,
not really
yeah, and that's the
pretty
thing
different.
too. It was a different. The internet was still pretty new, I'd say. YouTube was still it was just starting to boom. So, oh man, oh,
This isn't Thomas related, but I can tell you, I can
mhm,
still remember the first video I ever watched on YouTube,
yeah. What was
and
it?
it's so funny. I was really, I mean, I still am. I really was Huey's playoffs as a kid, and so my cousin called me over and he's like, "Hey, check this." He's older, than me, so he was allowed to use a computer.
Mhm.
I was probably like maybe 5 at his time,
Okay.
and he pulled me over, and it was it was a PS2 game, like a PlayStation 2 game, like a wrestling game.
Mhm.
But they had designed the characters to look like Pee Wee Herman and the Hulk. And
Mhm.
like in my mind as a kid, I thought this was real life, and I thought that Pee Wee Herman was fighting the Hulk, and I was like, oh my gosh, the coolest thing ever.
Wow. You know, I'm glad you bring that up because now I'm thinking like what I like I don't know if I could tell you my first YouTube video I watched, but I remember when I would first like watch YouTube, it would be through Google Videos. So like I wouldn't
I
even.
remember
It
Google videos. Yeah,
took a long time to like. I started just going to YouTube.com for probably a little bit longer than I needed to. I would just like type a video into Google Videos, and then after I watched the first video, I would watch another, and I'm on YouTube. But
yeah,
it's like I don't know if they even say YouTube video. There's probably no video spot on Google anymore. They just assume everybody's gonna go to YouTube.
I think I remember doing that because the old browsers used to have like the Google search bar, like they'd have like the 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 link bar, but they'd also have like right next to it they always had that smaller bar that's like just search anything on Google here before they kind of merged into the same thing, you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think that's why I remember using it a lot because I was like, oh, that's simple.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, I mean like for me it was like, seeing what got me into the community, and I'm sure it's probably similar for you, it was like just typing Thomas and seeing like wooden railway content. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah. Oh no, because I remember like especially back then it was really hard to find like episodes. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like before like RSGCMA, it was really hard to find. I think the only episode I remember seeing on YouTube at that time was I feel like it was Percy's Ghostly Trick, if I remember correctly. But
Mhm.
so yeah, when you typed in Thomas, well, it wouldn't really be like there was no official YouTube channel back then,
Yeah.
so it was just when you typed in Thomas, you would get just fan content,
Mhm.
and it was such a cool time to be on YouTube to like really get engulfed in this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And it makes me wonder if like the stuff that we watched back then, I'm sure it wouldn't be popular now. You know what I mean? But it's such a weird time to think about.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. I love thinking back to like the early days and how much it's changed. Just like we said, it's like, and I think that, especially looking at like how the content was, because like for me, what I was just not really into Thomas at that time. It was like a short little hiatus, I guess, for me. And when I found my first Wood Railway content, that's what got me back into it. And like they say, the rest is
Yeah,
history.
yeah. It's funny what got me like so ever since from probably when I was like 4 to probably like 11, I was into Thomas,
Hmm.
and I was out of it for most of my teenage years until I got to be about probably 16 again. And
Hmm.
I remember I didn't even look up Thomas. I got a video. It was a video by Turtles. I remember it was a video it was his video about like why did Audrey's story work.
Hmm.
And I just remember being like, huh, that's really interesting. And I clicked it, and it just led me down this rabbit hole. I was like, oh my gosh, the Thomas community still exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like shocked. I was like, it was like kind of dying out for a little bit.
Oh, it definitely was. And I mean, you, well, what, that was probably 15, 16 when because I remember 2013. You're right. I mean, it was like, it was on life support at that point. There wasn't much left. And fortunately, things turned around. And I don't know if that's
Yeah,
just because the show started doing better or what, but it turned around.
yeah. So I just distinctly remember, like, I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff still exists, and it just kind of, like I said, it put me down a rabbit hole
Mm-hmm.
of like just watching people's content,
Mm-hmm.
and like it was like I think I want to do this. It made me go back to my and like pull out my old trainings, and it just made me like want to do videos.
That's so cool to hear. I love hearing that, especially, I mean, for you to have been around in those early years and then all those years later to be able to, especially, I mean, at that point, about 5 years, it seemed like you were you come back
Yeah,
into it, and here you are.
yeah. I'm living during the best era of Thomas now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you came back at the right time because it's not looking too hot anymore.
Oh, no, no, but the fans will keep him alive.
That's
That's all
true.
that really
That's true.
matters.
Good thing you made the jump over to Blues Clues.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
I mean, that's a 180 with how they treat a revival.
Oh yeah, no, they did very well with the reboot. I'm
Hmm.
very pleased with how that turned out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm so glad I had you on here. I love being able to talk about these earlier stuff, and I love hearing about your history too. I mean, it's so great to see like for you to have been around in the early years and then to come back and become a large part of the community. It's so cool to see.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very pleased to be on here. Very
Mm-hmm.
nice talking to you too.
Do you have any plugs, Twitter, YouTube, or anything?
I have a Twitter. It's at Domeless_Engine. I have a YouTube account. It's Domeless Engine. I have an Instagram account. I do not remember what the Instagram account is, but you'll find it's Domeless Engine something.
Mm-hmm.
And I also run a YouTube and Twitter account called Backstage at Blues Clues for the history and trivia of Blues Clues, anything like that. If anybody be interested in that.
Sounds good. I'll put all those in the description, so be sure to check Domus out there if you aren't already.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. It was a blast having you here. There we go.
Yeah, that was awesome,
That
man.
was great. I loved it was just over an hour. It's like
Oh
an
wow,
hour and a few
dude,
seconds.